With me today is Jeff Davison, one of the 2021 Calgary general election mayoral candidates. How are you, Jeff?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And when you look at the vote on April 26, 2021, I think we're looking at a very important thing, the Greater Downtown Plan, from that technical term. But in general, I think we all feel the vibe. It is important. Just tell me that in a nutshell, like if you are to start off with a strategy, looking at the downtown plan, what is the top 1, top 3, top 5 things you want to do right away if you are elected?
Well, I think it all comes down to how do we move our economy forward? And so creating jobs is critically important. Thinking about downtown revitalization, also critically important. And then thinking about how do we live, work, and play in a safer and more inclusive city? Those are the big 3 topics that we're going to have to hit on day one.
I mean, in terms of making sure it is a viable, accessible location. And for a lot of immigrants, they look at downtown maybe a little bit different. Yeah. Let's say I hear people say, well, empty nester, they choose young professionals, maybe. Some of those like long-term immigrants in terms of I have been there, I've done that in my home country. It's very compact. This is a high density life that I don't want to engage anymore. Downtown is not my cup of tea. But what kind of persona you're thinking in terms of revitalizing downtown to make sure that people are there, business will come, money will come as well?
Well, the downtown is really the economic heartbeat of our city, right? And we have to think about how do we make that flow again? Some of the big challenges we have, though, with our downtown is that it's a very corporate downtown. And so thinking about ways how we advance residential living, thinking about ways that we do programming differently. So think about having things to do downtown after 5 p.m. It's one of the reasons why I'm so invested in building the new event center here in Calgary. It's not just about hockey. It's not just about concerts. It's really thinking about how do we develop the entertainment and cultural district that will attract up to $3 billion worth of private sector development.
How do you make this work in terms of realistic side of things, in terms of moving the puzzles around? I know there is only so much tax base and money that we have, and spending has been right up there, and the tax shift, whatnot. You know, how the numbers work in your mind?
Well, I think it's a big problem, right? I think we have to think about, number one, how do we get more people working downtown? And so dropping that corporate tax rate is going to become really important to attracting businesses down there. Talent is a huge issue that we have to solve for. So thinking if we want to move forward with all these things in innovation, focusing on energy and agriculture and goods movement and logistics, all of these opportunities come with a need to scale up people. So how do we get more people focused in and around the downtown is going to be critical. So you have to think about innovation plays into livability plays into having things to do, but it all comes down to live, work, and play environment together is how we're going to turn around the downtown.
There's a lot of strategic relations, and in particular more than or beyond the business side of things, we're looking at the social side of things. You know, what kind of thoughts when you want to work with people like the drop-in center, Calgary Police, all the other, other social service, especially you mentioned about safety is a huge issue, making sure that strategic relationships are working. Like, what would you do when you if you start the office next week?
Well, safety is the biggest issue, right? I can't get people living downtown. I can't get them encouraged to come back to work downtown. I can't get them encouraged to do things after 5 p.m. downtown if people simply just don't feel safe. And so we really have to think about how do we clean up the downtown and really think about how do we do it proactively, right? We don't, for instance, want to recreate some of the challenges that we had in East Downtown, in West Downtown, right? We can't just simply move social disorder from one place to another. That doesn't work over the long term. And so we have to think about, number one, how do we scale up policing and ensure that we have an appropriate amount of officers on the street per capita here? But also, how do we do policing smarter, right? What we've been doing over the past few decades, really isn't working. And if you doubt that, come for a walk after 7 p.m. downtown with me. You'll see what your money's buying you. We have to think differently about social disorder. So investing in mental health and addiction strategies that will help us be more proactive about dealing with social disorder is really important. Thinking about affordable livability in the downtown core. Can we provide opportunities within some of our office to residential conversions for affordable housing? These are all kinds of ways that we're going to have to focus on to clean up the downtown in a way that makes people want to be downtown again.
We have new faces in the council for sure, not only the mayor chair, but other councillors as well. In terms of dynamic personality, how you ensure that there is to get everything up and going as soon as possible, especially you're working with new faces in the council if you are elected?
Well, it's the big challenge, right? This will be the largest turnover in council history. And so working with new councillors is going to be of utmost priority day one, really understanding their goals, understanding their priorities, and how that ladders up to the overall strategic vision I have for the city. That's how we're going to work together. And I think this is a really important election to look at track record. All of the projects I have brought to the table, whether it's the economic strategy, whether it's job creation, whether it's the event center, I've had to get my colleagues to say yes. And so I get them invested to show them that there's a benefit for all Calgarians, and that lends to a favorable outcome. It's that approach that we're going to need in our next mayor to ensure that we can get these things over the line.
The extension of one of my questions earlier is about persona and why do immigrants care about downtown strategy if they opt, suburb is my way of things.
Well, again, the downtown is, yes, it's our biggest challenge, but it's our biggest opportunity. It is the economic heartbeat of our city. And so whether you're the electrician in Evergreen or the teacher in Tuscany or the newcomer in New Brighton, it doesn't matter. Downtown is critically important to the overall economic health and job creation in our city.
Speaking of the numbers and tax shift, once again, how realistic is to get your initiatives going? Where do we find the money to begin?
Well, a lot of the things we're doing, we've already got the capital allocated for. And so what that will allow us to do is on the corporate side, on the non-residential side, allow us to start dropping business tax rates so that we're much more competitive, even with places like Edmonton. My goal is to make Calgary the place to do business in Western Canada. And then thinking about, we can't put that on the back of residents, right? We can't pay more for services tomorrow than we're paying today. And so how do we freeze residential tax base in order to move forward? The key is attracting new businesses here, attracting more people here. That is the key to growth, right? And that's our biggest opportunity right now. Thinking about how we create new revenue sources and tax base, developing the entertainment and cultural district, thinking about how do we develop high density along the Green Line, in advance of Green Line, so that we build that tax base in advance. Those are big opportunities for Calgary and things that we're going to get going on day one.
My last question on this short dialogue would be, is the downtown or greater downtown strategy or plan the savior for Calgary?
I think it's one of the big things we've got to focus on. I don't think any one particular thing is going to be the savior. I think it's a whole bunch of things we're going to have to do to revitalize our downtown, which will ultimately be economic savior for Calgary.
Anything I missed you want to touch on?
I don't think so. Anything else you got?
That's great. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeff Davison, one of the mayoral candidates in the Calgary 2021 general election. Thank you so much for your time, Jeff.
Thank you.